One perception which is wrong that I see in a lot of religious people is their struggle with the so-called holy book versus creation itself. See, while the holy books of the, let's say, primary Abrahamic religions, let's call them so, see, they portray creation in one certain shape or form. But a lot of people seem to be worshipping the books more than they worship creation itself. Because spirituality means becoming in touch with creation itself, while in many cases, religion still, or people who are religious, still struggle with understanding what creation is and just focusing on creation as a very finite form, as a very minimized form, as opposed to what their books say. And it's always that they seem to worship the books more than they worship their creations. Wasn't there a commandment saying in each of these Abrahamic religions that you must not create beliefs towards any other god but the one you serve, or you should serve? Yes? Because each of those serves one god that has a physical shape. But at the same time, they contradict themselves because of a lack of understanding. They contradict themselves, saying that creation is infinite. You cannot tell me that creation is infinite, but come to me presenting it as a man. I don't care if it is a man, a woman, or an animal, or whatever. Any form of physicality means physicality in the end. Physicality means it is not immortal. Physicality means it will die. Your God will die sooner or later because it has a shape. Shape means limitedness. Physicality always has limits, has shapes, and also has an age, which means your God will die sooner or later. Am I wishing that? No, but this is what your claims presented. Many of the religious people, unfortunately, come and tell me about their gods and all the details and the such. They speak to me of their God as if they know that creation in person. But when you look at them, when you tell them to look in the mirror, they cannot understand their own ego. They cannot understand layers, the most superficial layers of their existence, like their minds, their layers, how they function, their beliefs, their belief systems, and the such. And they speak to me about high things in life, like creation. It's like, I cannot care about anything. You're just imagining things, you're living a Delulu reality. Because you cannot tell me that you believe in creation when you worship a book written by your ancestors a long time ago. Is being religious a bad thing? No, obviously not. Everyone is free to imagine creation the way they want. The big problem that I would say many religious people have is that they kind of lack this so called relation with the divinity that they say they have. Obviously, not all of them. But a big chunk of the so called religious people, they just go on worshipping the book. They live by that book and what that book says, they don't question anything. And it's like, dude, isn't that book kind of, beating the bush from one certain standpoint? Because if a book has to tell you how to live your life, how ignorant can you actually have to be? Because let's think a bit about many religions tell you that it's not good to, commit to adultery. It's not good to kill. It's not good to steal. It's not good to do this and that. Kind of all of these are general aspects presented by the Abrahamic religions. But the question is, shouldn't these actually be in your moral compass? Because the more you shun away from creation and obviously what you are, a human being, and well, obviously the morality that you have been birthed with as a human being, right? The more you stray from that, the more you become easier to manipulate by anything else. See, the only reason there are laws that tell you or prohibit you from killing, laws that prohibit you from stealing, and the such, these laws only exist because we are ignorant enough of our morality. Yes, I'm not saying necessarily no one will ever steal in their life, but if you have a certain morality, well, while you are children, it's obvious that it's easy to, fall for impulses and the such. But when you become an adult and you have boundaries and you have respect towards yourself and obviously consequently towards the others, you know that messing with the things of the others is not a thing. Because by your moral rules or by the moral rules of humanity as a design, you know that you should treat yourself and others as you treat yourself. You should treat yourself well, and how you want to be treated, you should treat the others as well. right? So you don't need to be reminded all these little moral values and virtues that should be within us by default. But we're so ignorant, we simply shun away our inner child, our intuition, anything that makes us human, especially our emotions. And then we just, or the majority of people just live like a mold, waiting for something else to shape them, always falling for this illusion in those mythological books that they call holy, telling them that some almighty creator will fix all the problems in their life. Your parents could not fix you. Your school could not fix you. You can't. Oop. Yes, of course I had to drop it. You cannot fix your fucking life. And you're telling me that one creation, which supposedly is infinite but has a physical shape denoting limitedness, so obviously the opposite, will actually bother itself with solving all the troubles in your life. No, you've been sold a big, beautiful lie and you fell for it. And you're also embracing the comfort of that. You're looking at your parents, your grandparents, people around you, they're all so enthralled by this idea. They're dying on the inside because they know subconsciously that nothing is going to change their life, nothing's going to make their life better. Only you and your actions. You choose to live like a ruin. Who the heck would you think would ever spend money on a ruin? The only reason someone would spend money on a ruin in real life would be to destroy it so that they can build something else on that piece of land, because most likely it's going to have a very strategic importance for them. Yes? If we speak about personalities, someone would invest in a ruin only because they can extract some resources from those. Obviously, narcissists will love ruined people because they can ruin them even more. Ruined people are very tired and, well, they're easy to control because they're too tired to question their reality, or mentally tired, or, well, retired, I may kind of say. Not retarded, I want to say retired, because a lot of people, they have a potential. Some of them even can be of a genius potential, but they just choose to shut up, not say anything, not think anything, just live like a mollusk and be simply taken away by, or, well, let's say driven by the current to wherever it takes them, right? My videos are not here to shame people or to tell them that their paths are bad and, they are against this and that. I cannot care what you are against or what you are for. For and against are just emotional states, whether you like something emotionally or whether you analyze those cognitively and you end up thinking that believing in something or following something will suit you more or less depending on the results that you'll get. Some people feel that if they follow religion, well, they will feel a bit more enlightened, they feel closer to creation, or that they will feel more motivated to do things in life, or that they feel safer because following some patterns or ideas given by a holy book can help them remind themselves of the virtues with which this sick society constantly strives to distract you from. Nothing wrong about each of these points that I mentioned. But a big problem that I would say many religious people have and, well, kind of perform like, they take their holy books way too seriously about that. Honestly, a bit of those holy books, I feel that they are a bit humiliating because I do not need a book to remind me of my morality. Because when you're a human who has a certain potential about their inner worlds, you do not need to be reminded not to be a killer. You do not need to be reminded not to hurt others, not to betray others, not to break other people's trust, not to, silently remove people from your life or ghost them, as people call them, just to see how much they suffer, right? Some people are born like that, and religion will obviously not have any power against those, because you can create rules, but rules are only for certain people who can follow those. You cannot tell a psychopath to simply be emotional, because by design their brains simply have a much weaker developed emotional side of the brain, right? The brain part that would regulate emotion normally functions quite a lot in some people, especially in some people who are very sensitive. But in psychopaths, it functions way less. So you cannot tell them by rule, by law, or by anything, especially even holy books, that they should be more, they should be kinder to other people. If they cannot perceive that, they will not do that. It's like telling People who see reversed colors, that the color that they see is fake. Yes. If, someone sees green instead of red, well, it's going to be hard to simply convince them that, red is green and green is red, unless you tell them the concepts otherwise. But you have to, you have to conduct some study to realize that, they're seeing the color in an opposite way. Similar examples obviously may apply. But the problem is, you're telling me you should not believe in anything but the God you choose to believe. Now the problem is, why do you believe more in a book than in what the creator is? Because in the end, religion has a few problems. One of them is that there is always someone who has to connect you to the creator, right? And there is always someone who has to remind you of the creator, right? That only works for ignorance. That only works for people who are obsessed with being distracted, who attend the churches, the sermons, the whatever you call them in your different languages and cultures, only for, the sake of other people seeing them, right? Those people are not necessarily Christians or Muslims or the such. If you wear a cross as a necklace, it doesn't make you a Christian, yes? If you wear your, Islamic symbols, it doesn't necessarily make you a Muslim, yes? If you do your prayers, it doesn't necessarily make you a Muslim, because religion, in a very sad way, is highly external, yes? And a lot of people, unfortunately, externalize it a lot, because they expect others to see them. They expect probably some validation. Nobody's gonna give a fuck about you and your life. You have to be man enough or woman enough to simply choose what to do in life. Yes, you have to be like that. You have to take responsibility over your life, because no one else will. If you don't fight for something that you like, if you don't work for something that you like, someone else will most likely employ you to work for them. And then you'll most likely end up with way more regret than you already have. So the point is, one in life has to learn how to view creation. And creation is something beyond this physicality. It doesn't need a name. It doesn't need anything. So why would you think creation in its infiniteness will ever bother to know about you? See, I always tell people, there are two sides. Some people think that God knows everything, including them, so this is a narcissistic delusion where creation itself knows them and will support them, but, well, you only see them in pain, so how can you tell me that your creation is supporting you, but you are constantly in pain? If creation would support you, you would not necessarily be in pain. You are always in pain when you stray away from creation and how creation designed you, right? And I'm saying creation, not God or Jesus or whatever else people believe in, because I prefer believing in creation as both a process and a result. We are all pieces of creation in the end, and also creators of our own life. Yes, we do not have the potential of God to create a whole cosmos, but if you look at yourself, how many times have you imagined things, even cosmoses? How many times have you wanted to write books, or have you thought about adventures of fantasy characters you came up with, and you created some stories? Maybe you gave up on those, but you created whole cosmoses, whole universes around those characters, and actions and betrayals and drama and happy moments and the such, right? At a certain very feeble level, you have created something. If you learn to use imagination in a conscious way, you can actually create worlds beyond your physical perception. And you can actually create gardens. You can create a very subtle physicality, which you can enjoy later on. You can create a whole system that can actually support you, instead of living in the system that you live in. Maybe not even your house is supportive of you, because in the end, you have all the negative energies of the people around you, even those that you thought of. That is why a lot of thoughts constantly recur in your mind when you are in certain spaces of your house. But this for another video. So, life is way more than just believing in something. What is a belief other than accepting something without a necessity for proof? Everyone tells me my book says this, my book says that, my book says this, my book says that. And when you look at many religious people, the more ignorant they are, the more they look like 5-year-olds fighting for whoever's God is better. When you draw a line, it's like 70% of all the Abrahamic religions are common. And, like there are some differences where, I don't know, egos did not fall in line together. They just wanted something different. It's like we have invented a version of divinity that would fit our egos. And now when you look at everything in the world with creating DNA samples, splicing animals and this and that, creating replicas of DNA and such, a lot of people want to play gods, but you're just a, god from Wish, from Temu, from, like you're just a second-hand god, right? You're inventing a few things, but, life is very feeble. You're creating an even more feebled life. That does not make you a god, yes? So one has to comprehend, if you take your book too much into account, where is your life actually going? How much are you actually living your life? Because those books are other people's standpoints, other people's points of view. Your purpose in this life is to simply embrace your uniqueness, is to simply embrace life as is to simply embrace your intuition and design things for creation, because creation wants to create through you. You are a vessel of creation, not of worshipping a book. If you want to become the tool of a tool, well, feel free to do so in life, but don't feel surprised if you're starting to feel more and more dead on the inside and depressed. I always tell people, you don't have to think that God knows everything about you or God doesn't know you at all. There are very few people who are knowledgeable of the fact that creation doesn't know who the heck you are. In the end, if creation is that infinite as you say, you are nothing else but a fart in the winds of the cosmos. Because many people are exactly like that. They make some sound in their life, they stink, and then they're no longer in here. What's your life compared to the billions of years of the cosmos, right? You're nothing else but, as I call them, toxic people are nothing else but little farts. They cause a little sound as they live, they stink a lot, and, well, sometimes they stink even after their death, but sooner or later, there's nothing to remember them anymore. Even after they die, the people they so-called once knowed them, well, they're gonna forget them in a few hours or at most in a few days because, well, they never had any true connection in the end, right? If someone whom you truly like passes away, you're gonna feel their absence, even probably years after, right? So, you see, I always tell people there are two situations in the end with creation. One situation is that God knows everything about you, as, well, religious people present. And I tell them, one of their greatest defenses is that if they don't like something, they will call you a sinner, expecting you to repent, to feel bad, to feel afraid of their little God. And I tell them, see, if God knows everything about me, He knows my design by heart, right? So if He knows my design by heart, why would they punish me when they know how I design, how I was designed, and how I function? If they know how I function, they are the only ones who can judge whether I'm a sinner or not your silly little minds who cannot comprehend anything about fucking life. And the other point of view is that what if God doesn't actually know who the fuck you are? To the ignorant people, when they go to the church like the little sheep they are, they have this stupid impression, like all other ignorance, that the priest, preacher, imam, whatever they are, only speaks to themselves and only to themselves, because they are the only human being on this planet. Everyone else is just walking shadows, bots, inferiors, tools to be made use of. This is what ignorance is all about. It's all about seeing others as tools that you can make use of, right? So if God doesn't know anything about you, well, why would you bother telling me that I am a sinner? Creation will not care, because the laws of karma have been designed. Your actions are your karma, and they will draw upon you their own consequences. Because, well, sooner or later, everything is paid for. Maybe not in the same current life, but you will pay for everything you do. Some people simply commit murders and they don't get any punishment. Many people tell me that, God gives to everyone. Yes, of course, God gives to everyone because they only are aware that, God gives to them the good things. But they kind of don't want to admit that something bad happens. Is like, didn't God give you that as well? Because in the end, wouldn't it be a challenge? And if God gives to you, they don't give to only you, right? And then you can counter them with other things. It's like, yeah, sure, God gives also a thief the targets, for them to practice on. God gives a serial killer their targets as well. Because a lot of these religious people will always tell you God controls everything. No, God controls everything means you are too much of an ignorant to do anything with your life, and when something happens, you choose to be a victim. That is not about being a religious person. Being a religious person is following your creation in the way that you feel it is. Yes, I have been convinced by numerous events in my life that creation is not the same way that people portray it to me. So therefore, I have a certain belief of mine, a huge set of functions within me. It is beyond the belief because I have been convinced by certain things by my own experiences and metaphysical experiences as well. But I'm not here to present a new religion, God forbid a new one appears. I'm not here to present my standpoints as being better. I'm just reminding people of how they function, because a lot of times I see people function in a certain way, use certain words that they forgot what they mean, or do certain things that they are not aware what circumstances they may draw or what repercussions they might have. Because I see a lot of people create concepts in their mind, but they kind of forget what those concepts were initially created for, or they get stuck in all sorts of meanings that they don't seem too aware what they actually mean, right? So hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated, take care, enjoy life. This being said, Ferenc Jan Bor signing out.